Hey there, I'm author Sarah A. Chrisman, and today I'm going to talk to you about how innovations in paper-making technology in the 19th century led to changes that ultimately affected all of us.
Books have become so inexpensive and readily available in the modern world that people have a tendency to take them for granted, which is a terrible shame because taking something for granted is often the first step towards ignoring or discounting it. Very few people stop to think what an incredible marvel it is that we live in a world where, for less than the cost of a greasy fast food meal which is gone and forgotten in about a few minutes, we can buy a book which may have taken the author years to produce, which offers us the combined insights and wisdom not just of the person who wrote it, but also all the books they themselves have read, and that will entertain, enlighten, and educate us for hour upon hour every time we pick it up, possibly for the rest of our lives. Books are such miracles. If you think about it, it's a wonder of wonders that they can possibly be as cheap as they are. Let's look into how this came about. For many centuries, each individual scroll or codex had to be hand-copied word for word by an elite class of scribes or clerics writing on papyrus, animal skin vellum, or some comparably precious early paper. When the movable type printing press came on the scene in the 15th century thanks to Johannes Gutenberg, this vastly more efficient way of copying text led to an absolutely huge expansion in literacy and access to information, both of which had very direct connections to the Enlightenment and the Protestant Reformation. People were ravenously hungry for books and other printed materials, but remember, it's not just enough to be able to print quickly, you also have to have something to print on. As printing technology kept advancing, the paper-making industry tried to keep pace, but by the early 1800s, the paper makers were falling behind. By this time, paper was largely made from rags, which could include cotton, linen, flax, hemp, or silk. And actually some artisan paper is still made from rags and other plant fibers. And the special paper on which the U.S. prints its currency is a combination of cotton and linen fibers, but I digress. In the early 19th century, there just weren't enough rags to meet the demands of paper makers, who in turn were trying to meet the demands of printers and the reading public. Recycling helped make up a bit of the gap, and various experiments were tried with paper made from jute, straw, or other grasses. But the real game changer was when wood pulp paper arrived on the scene. A mechanical wood pulping process was introduced by Heinrich Walter in 1845, but it took another couple of decades to improve the process enough for commercial use on the scale needed for commercial industry. The processes of sulfite and sulfate pulping developed during this time were effectively very sophisticated ways of cooking down ground wood in acid solutions, and they expanded people's access to books and other printed materials in an enormous way. In 1850, when rag paper was still the norm but about to quit the scene, the annual per capita production of paper in the U.S. and Europe was less than 5 kilograms per person. By 1900, U.S. paper production was more than 30 kilograms per capita. Now think about that a minute. In less than 2 generations, there was suddenly 6 times more paper entering circulation every year. Just think about how many books, magazines, newspapers, and other printed materials that represented, and how much more accessible they'd suddenly become. You might just order them from one of those spiffy new catalogs like Sears and Roebuck or Montgomery Ward, which the cheap new paper was suddenly turning into a cost-effective way to do business. Or, if you preferred buying things in person, the shop might very well place your purchase in a flat-bottomed paper bag like those first invented by Margaret Knight in 1867. By the 1870s, the machinery and infrastructure had developed to churn out wood pulp paper cheaply and rapidly, and the impact on the publishing and news industry was profound. Suddenly, books, newspapers, and magazines were affordable for everyone, and from the richest to the poorest, everyone was reading. Printed texts ran the gamut from yellow-backed novels and penny dreadful thrillers to how-to manuals, etiquette guides and other self-improving works, novels of all sorts, generically called romances at the time, histories and books of interesting facts, and even sermons and other religious works. Whatever your tastes, there were suddenly more books within your means than ever before. Today, books still remain, hour for hour and dollar for dollar, one of the cheapest forms of entertainment you can buy. They're also, by far, the most cost-effective education you can invest in, and a rock-bottom deal on a ticket to other times and places. All brought within easy affordability of even the poorest classes, thanks to a Victorian innovation. Let's all make sure we're continuing to take full advantage of it. Surround yourself with books and read as much as you can.
Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a nice thumbs up and remember to tell your friends about my books. Happy reading!